more factoring. We're going to be doing a lot of factoring throughout this entire year. So it's really important that you pay attention and that you really understand what's going on with factoring. Okay, so here we're going to factor a quadratic. Now, a quadratic is something in the form of something squared plus something by itself plus a number. Okay, so we're ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, that's a quadratic. Okay, so when we're factoring this quadratic, we're going to find something that multiplies to 14 and adds to 9. Okay, and you guys might be familiar with this from Algebra 1, right, where we're going to put these open parentheses, put t in each one, because t times t is t squared. And then I realized both should be positive because I'm multiplying to a positive and adding to a positive. And then I figure out that the factors are 2 and 7 because 2 times 7 is 14, and that works, it multiplies to 14, and 2 plus 7 is 9. Okay, so there we have that factored. Let's do another one. Again, a quadratic is just something that's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so y squared minus 5y plus 6. The a in this case would be 1. The b is -5, the c is 6. Okay, so I'm going to look at this and I see that there's a negative that they add to it, but a positive that they multiply to. Two negatives multiply to a positive, so I know both are going to be negative. -2 times -3 is 6. -2 plus -3 is -5, so we're good there. Let's do another one. We have t squared plus 2t minus 15. Okay, I'm going to draw these open parentheses. I know I have t as my first terms because t times t is t squared. And then I'm going to have a positive and a negative because they're multiplying to a negative. Okay, but the bigger one is going to be positive because they're adding to a positive number. Okay, if that was a negative number, then the bigger one would be negative. So then I know that the factors are 5 and 3 because those add up to -5 and positive 5 and -3 add up to 2. Okay, now suppose that we have something a little bit trickier. Suppose we have something in front, a coefficient in front of our p squared here. Okay, so our a is not 1, it's 6. Okay, so now there's a bunch of different possibilities for my first terms. It could be 3p and 2p, p and 6p, 6p and p, etc. Okay, there's a lot. Yeah, this seems kind of difficult. So I'm going to teach you a method to do this without kind of doing this trial and error. So I will draw a big X and a big box. In the top of my big X, I'm going to multiply the first term and the last term, and that will multiply to -30p squared. And then I'm going to take my middle term and drop it down to the bottom box, so that's just p. Okay, now I'm going to try to find two numbers that multiply to -30p squared and add to p. Okay, so both of them will have p in it, so just think of multiply to -30, add to 1. Okay, so one of them has to be negative because they're multiplying to a negative. And since they're adding to a positive number, I know that the bigger one should be positive. So I end up with the factors 6 and -5. They both have p in it because it's multiplying to p squared, adding to a p. Okay, now I'm going to put those into those two corners of the boxes. Then in that top left corner, I'm going to put 6p squared. The bottom right corner is going to have -5. Those are my first and last terms. Now I'm going to factor out a 6p out of the first column, and out of the first row, I'm going to factor out a p. Then I'm going to take the sign that I see in the 6p box, which is plus, and factor out a 1 out of that row. And then I'm going to take the sign that's in the 5p box and then take out a 5 out of there. Okay, so I end up with the two factors, 6p minus 5, which you see at the top, and p plus 1 down the side. Okay, so this is a surefire method of kind of factoring this, and it's a little bit easier than just sort of a trial and error method. Okay, it's something similar to European factorization if you've seen European factorization before. Okay, we're going to move on to another example here. So suppose we have 25u squared, and then I'm going to take a minus 20u. Okay, so this is obviously going to be complicated because I have a that is not 1, so it's going to be minus 20uv and then plus 4v squared. Okay, so I'm going to first make this big X, and then I'm going to make my box. Okay, in the top corners there, on the top left corner, I'm going to put my first term, in the bottom right corner, my last term, so 25u squared and then 4v squared. Now I'm going to multiply the first and last terms in the top of my X, that's 100u squared v squared, and then the bottom, I'm just dropping the middle term, -20uv. So something that adds to 100, and then, multiplies to 100, adds to -20, so I know that they're both going to be negative if they're adding to a negative and multiplying to a positive. And then the two factors that I think of are 10 and 10, yeah? So they're both going to have uv, right? So -10uv, -10uv. Okay, I'm going to take the sign that I see in those boxes, yeah, and take them out there just to begin. Okay, now I'm going to factor out a 5u out of the first thing, a 5u out of that row. In that second column, I can factor out a 2v, and then I can also factor out a 2v there. So I end up with the two factors 5u minus 2v, 5u minus 2v. So it's 5u minus 2v squared. Okay, so remember that top right corner, whatever the sign is there, that's what the sign that you put kind of in between, and same thing with the bottom left corner. Okay, let's try another one. So this one's going to be slightly different. So I have x to the 6th power minus 64y to the 6th power. Okay, this is a difference of squares, okay? Difference of squares. So that means I can factor it into the form of x cubed, and then x cubed, those are my first terms, and then 1 is minus, 1 is plus, and then I have 8y cubed, and then 8y cubed, okay? But then I can factor this again because I have a difference of cubes and a sum of cubes. Okay, so this first one is a difference of cubes. The second one is a sum of cubes, and I have formulas for those. You can go back to 4-5 and look up those formulas for difference of cubes and sum of cubes. Okay, they're there very clearly so that you can follow that. So the first one is going to factor into x minus 2y. Okay, and it's going to multiply by x to the x squared, okay, plus 2 times xy, and then I have plus 4y squared, okay? Just look up the formulas, you should be able to find it. The second one just factors almost the same, except that there's a minus there in front of the 2xy, okay? And then I also have the first term is x plus 2y. Obviously, you can tell I'm doing this video much slower because this is kind of a complicated topic, and you guys are not used to factoring this way yet. I'm just double checking to make sure that nothing is factorable. Indeed, these last two terms, I cannot further factor them, okay, because there's nothing that's going to add to add to 2 multiply to 4, nothing that's going to add to negative 2 multiply to 4, so I'm done there. We are going to do, I think, one last example. So we have 4r squared, okay, as our first term. So I know that I'm going to have to do that big X, the big box, okay, or at least I think I'm going to have to do that. Okay, and then we have 4r squared plus 16rs minus 10s squared. So I realize first that there is something that all of these have in common. It's 2. Okay, so very important note. If you have a greatest common factor with all your terms, take it out first before you do any of the more complicated type of factoring. Do what's easy first. I can take out a 2 out of every term, so I'm going to do that. Okay, and then what I would realize eventually is that this is actually not factorable, so we're done. Okay, basically I just cannot factor anything to, you know, multiply to 5 and add to 8. So the main point is here, factor out any greatest common factors first before you do any other factoring. If you do not factor out the greatest common factor, you will run into major problems. So just make sure you do that first. So if they have 4 in common, take it out. If they have 2 in common, take it out. Anyways, good luck on your homework. Have a great day.